When you think of ancient Egypt, what's the first thing that pops in your head? For most of us, it's got to be this, right? The iconic, super dramatic, kohl-rimmed eye. We see it everywhere, and we think, okay, beauty, power, royalty. But what if I told you that was just the tip of the iceberg? What if it was so much more than that? Well, let's dive in. So, was it just about beauty? The short answer? Not even close. You see, this obsession with eyeliner wasn't just about looking good for the pharaohs. It was actually a deeply sophisticated response to a relentless environmental threat. We're going to unpack the science and the symbolism here to show you how this cosmetic practice was actually a brilliant piece of cultural technology. Okay, so to really get how eyeliner became this piece of technology, we've got to put ourselves in their shoes. We have to understand the world they lived in. And for your eyes, ancient Egypt was, well, a pretty tough place to be. Let's call this the green interface. Just picture it. The air is filled with this fine grit. Sand from the desert, sure, but also dust from all the stonework and, as we know now, all kinds of airborne microbes. This wasn't just, a minor irritation. It was a constant, daily attack on their eyes, leading to nonstop irritation and some pretty nasty infections. And this really brings home the human cost. This isn't some decree from a pharaoh. It's a heartbreaking plea from a regular guy, a stoneworker named Pei, who had gone blind. He's writing to his son, and what's he asking for? A very specific medical kit. Honey, probably as a sealant, some ground-up ochre, and that all-important, real black eye paint. This was a life-and-death problem for everyday people. So just how common was this stuff? Well, a really detailed study was done at a major cemetery in Deir el-Medina. That's actually the same community where Pei the stoneworker lived. And get this, they found equipment for applying kohl in over 42% of the tombs they excavated. 42%! That tells you right there, this was not some luxury for the pharaohs. This was an absolutely essential, widespread practice for staying healthy. So, if this practice was so critical for their health, how did they make sure everyone was doing it right? Well, they didn't just leave it up to chance. They literally wrote the manual. And they wrote it in one of the oldest medical books in the entire world, the Ebers Papyrus. And tucked inside this incredible document is a whole section people call the eye book. But when you actually analyze it, you realize it's not just a bunch of random recipes. No way. It's a highly structured, almost like a user manual for eye care. It has its own grammar, its own system. The text uses this really specific set of action words. It doesn't just say, put this on. It very frequently gives the instruction to paint the eyes. That's the first key command, the first operator in their whole system. But then it gets even more precise. Another instruction you see again and again is to place on the back of the eyes. See? This isn't some vague rub it around of it. It's a specific spatial command, almost like a surgeon's protocol. And a third one directs the user to put in the eye's interior. So you have paint, back, in. By using this very distinct set of instructions, the Egyptians were making sure their treatments were applied in a consistent, repeatable, and effective way. This was serious medicine. Okay, now this is where it gets super interesting. This table breaks down 11 remedies in a row from that eye book. And yeah, you see the ingredients, right? Minerals, pigments, instructions on how to process them. But look at that top line. The single most common element showing up in 10 out of the 11 remedies is a specific eye placement verb. So what does that tell us? The crucial takeaway here is that how you applied the medicine was just as important, maybe even more important than what was in it. The action itself was the heart of the system. Now, this daily medical routine was so fundamental, so important to their survival, that it eventually morphed into one of the most powerful symbols in all of human history. That physical act of sealing and protecting the eye got compressed, culturally speaking, into this incredible symbol, the Wedjat, or as you might know it, the Eye of Horus. This symbol wasn't just some abstract idea of protection. It was born directly out of the real, lived, daily experience of fighting to keep your vision in a hostile world. The Wedjat basically tells a 4-part story that every single Egyptian would have understood in their bones. First, there's a boundary breach. Dust gets in and infection starts. Step 2, medical containment. That's the application of the kohl, the medicine. Step 3 is divine restoration. The healing begins. And finally, wholeness is reestablished. It's this perfect cycle of injury and repair, blown up to a cosmic divine principle. But the system had one final, absolutely brilliant twist. How do you make sure this vital knowledge about protection and wholeness gets carried on? even into a place where sight doesn't even matter anymore. The tomb? Seriously, think about that for a second. In the total darkness of the tomb, how on earth do you pass on your culture's most important symbol of protection when that symbol is all about vision? The answer is what we'll call the string interface. When vision is off the table, what comes next? Sound. Audition takes over. The knowledge was encoded into time, into rhythm, into repetition, all through the performance of these Harper songs during funeral rituals. Sound becomes the new carrier for the code. And this slide really shows you why sound was the perfect medium for this job. Vision is all about space and edges, and you need light for it to work. But hearing, audition, that's all about time and rhythm. It's perfectly designed to encode patterns, repetitions, cycles, just like that cycle of restoration in the Wedjat. And crucially, it can give structure to darkness. It's a totally brilliant cognitive leap. So what we're looking at here is a complete, elegant system. From a speck of dust in the eye to a song being sung in a tomb. And there's actually a name for this whole process. It's called symbol conductivity. And here's the idea. It's the process where a culture takes a persistent, chronic stress, like all that dust, and transforms it into a durable, repeatable practice, like applying eyeliner. And that practice then generates a super powerful symbol that can be passed down through generations, even if it has to change its form from sight to sound. So this is the whole system, the interface triad. It all starts with the grain. That's your chronic environmental stressor, the dust. That pressure leads to a solution at the eyelid, a practical, repeatable action, the coal. And finally, the meaning of that action is transmitted by the string, a non-visual channel, like sound, that makes sure the symbol lives on way beyond a single person's lifetime. It's just a beautiful, fully integrated system. And that leaves us with a pretty fascinating question for our own time, doesn't it? The ancient Egyptians turned dust into the Eye of Horus. So what are the chronic stressors in our world? Digital overload, climate change, social divisions. What are the practices and the powerful symbols that our civilization is creating right now that we will one day leave behind?